So welcome everyone. My name is Alexis Capiatis, Partnership and Business Development Manager at the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association. On behalf of CHTA, I would like to welcome you all to the Top Myths About Short-Term Rentals and How They're Affecting Your Market webinar. As a reminder, CHTA webinars are a member benefit. If you have not updated your profile or paid your 2019-2020 dues, please do so after the webinar. Also, we hope to see you all in the Bahamas for our upcoming 2020 Caribbean Travel Marketplace, taking place January 21st to the 23rd. Registration is currently open. Before we proceed with the webinar, let's go over a few housekeeping items. This presentation is being recorded and will be distributed to our CHTA members. Outside of the main presenters, all participants have been muted to avoid disruption from latecomers and minimize distractions. If you have any questions during or after the presentation, please send them via the chat box to myself, CHTA team host, and they'll be answered in the order they were received during the Q&A section. This webinar will last approximately 1 hour. Now, I would like to welcome Justin with TravelClick, who will be leading the Top Myths About Short-Term Rentals and How They're Affecting Your Market webinar. Thank you so much. Justin, take it away.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Perfect. Sorry about the technical difficulties we were having there. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Want to just walk through a little bit of an agenda. We'll spend some time going over the state of the alternative accommodation market, discuss specifically how that's impacting different areas of the Caribbean, and then we'll walk into a live demo of our new solution. So just to get started, I'm sure you've all heard and been talking more recently, but alternative accommodations can no longer be ignored. They're growing nonstop, about 33% year over year from 2017 to 2018. These listings are becoming much more professionalized. There's a lot of shifting between traditional hoteliers and your traditional vacation rental players. You'll see people like Marriott moving into the vacation rental space, and then you'll see people like Airbnb, buying Hotel Tonight, listing hotel inventory. So it's a very interesting time. There's a lot of growth. There's a lot of misconceptions, which we'll talk about in a second, but it's definitely something that you need to start paying attention to. It's no longer something that can be ignored. That's why we at TravelClick have released a new solution for our Rate 360 and Demand 360 subscribers, which we'll talk through in a little later. Really, it's all about two things. It's helping you understand that supply of short-term rentals in your market, because without that understanding, you're flying blind. You need a clear quantitative understanding of the scope of the problem before you start to actually address it. Second, once you have that understanding, that baseline, you're able to use forward-looking data, just like with our industry-leading Demand and Rate 360 solutions, to integrate pricing trends and availability trends of these short-term rentals into your typical hotel management practice. On the right-hand side here, you'll see some statistics from FocusWire, a survey they just recently released. You'll see that now about 3/4 of all leisure travelers are considering a vacation rental when looking for lodging. And FocusWire has predicted that approximately 25% of all dollars spent on lodging this year is going to go to alternative accommodations. And there's still a number of myths out there regarding alternative accommodations or vacation rentals, short-term rentals, and they have lots of different names. But essentially, there's still a handful of misconceptions that exist that we can talk about today and really understand how that impacts you specifically in a second. Like I mentioned earlier, the supply of these has grown like weeds. From 2017 to 2018, year-over-year growth of 33%. This is no longer some small little competitive threat in the corner. We just saw about 1/4 of spending is going to be spent in this space in 2019. Top 20 markets here growing over 100,000 listings. A lot of times too, people think not only are these not large in number, but they're not super competitive with my hotel, right? So people think vacation home, they think maybe a beach home or a ski home, really something that is a once in a while, long-term vacation play. So they're thinking it's, 7 days length of stay, it's got 5 bedrooms, et cetera. It's definitely more in a leisure environment, less urban. But what you'll notice is, over the last 4 or 5 years, we've seen the length of stay decrease from 7 nights down to 3 nights. We've seen the average number of bedrooms decrease in these listings, where 75% of the listings have 1 bedroom or less. And we also seen the shift to more of a leisure environment, an urban environment as well. So it's definitely something that has changed a lot in the last couple of years, and there's still some misconceptions out there. And that's really why we built this product, to help address some of those. So I just want to briefly take a pause from this to walk through how it's impacting specifically locally, in the Caribbean. So what we have here in the next couple slides are a handful of screenshots of the listings by approximate location that are impacting the market. So in this case, you can see in the Caribbean, there are about 73 bedrooms, the capacity for over 360,000 guests. The entire home ADR, the average rate for these is about $280. And there are actually 42,000 of these units, so definitely the largest share, which have at least 2 bedrooms. 9,000 of these units have over 4 bedrooms. So where you see the general trend, like you saw on the last slide, kind of moving more to smaller, shorter lengths of stay, you're going to see here that there still is a pretty large share of large bedroom units in the marketplace, which makes sense given the destination nature of a lot of your markets. Going now on a kind of country by country level, first looking at the Dominican Republic. At the country level here, you'll see that there are about 15,000 listings compared to about 24,000 hotel rooms. So in this case, the number of bedrooms is actually larger than the number of hotel rooms. The average rate here in the DR is about $180 a night for an entire home listing, and the largest 4 bedroom is going for $1,500 a night. Going specifically into Santo Domingo, just to give you an idea kind of at a city level here, we've gone down to about 2,600 listings. Listings, 2-bedroom units, and they have an ADR of around $280. The other side of the island, looking at Punta Cana here, total room count is 2,700 listings, which compares to about 16,000 hotel rooms. So in this case, you'll see this particular market within Dominican Republic is less saturated than the overall island, as well as compared to Santo Domingo. Moving on to Jamaica, there's about 5,500 listings here compared to about 6,600 hotel rooms. The ADR here is a little higher. It's about $370 a night. The majority of the units are 2 bedrooms. And in Kingston specifically, there are 1,300 listings. In Montego Bay, there are just over 700 listings. Moving to Puerto Rico here in San Juan, you'll see there are about 3,900 listings in the San Juan market. That compares to about 9,200 hotel rooms. The ADR here is about $260, and half of these units, these 3,900 units, are 1 bedrooms. In the Barbados, there's about 3,400 listings, actually larger than the number of hotels on the island, so definitely a massive player here in the space. Definitely need to pay attention in Barbados here. And then in Aruba, similar situation, there's 1,900 listings compared to 1,600 hotel rooms. Trinidad and Tobago, about 1,300 listings compared to 2,100 hotel rooms. St. Lucia, 1,100 listings compared to 2,700 hotel rooms. Moving to Turks and Caicos, you'll see there's about 1,000 listings here. Over half of these are 1 or 2 bedrooms, so definitely taking a higher number of guests. Very few, or a lot less, 3 or 4 bedrooms. In Providenciales, there's a high density with over 800 units. So for, most of them are located, and the total room count in the hotel side is about 1,200. For Antigua and Barbuda, there's about 700 listings compared to 1,700 hotel rooms. You can see scattered kind of across the island here. Cayman Islands, there's about 570 listings compared to 1,600 hotel rooms, most here in Georgetown. And in Haiti, there's about 500 listings compared to 700 hotel rooms. Okay, So now that we've covered specifically what's happening on each island, we wanted to dive in and actually show you a demo of the product and how it can help you better understand, better compete with these particular listings. Like I mentioned earlier, there's two major use cases for this product. The first is all about understanding the true supply of short-term rentals. So most people know they're out there. Until I showed you those maps, you probably weren't quite sure where they were located on all these islands and different markets, the characteristics of those listings, be it the number of bedrooms, et cetera. So without that clear quantitative understanding of the scale of this competitive threat, you can't really respond to it. So that's really the first use case. And then the second is all about using that baseline understanding and looking into the future to incorporate forward-looking trends on pricing and availability of these short-term rentals into your revenue management practice. So what I'm going to do now is just briefly switch over to the interface itself. So here you're looking at the total inventory page. This is what I said, the first use case around understanding the scope of the problem. So you'll see right off the bat, you have a total number of listings in the market, broken down then by the type of listing. Another misnomer, I think, a lot of times with these short-term rentals, or another misconception, is essentially that most of these types of listings don't compete with a hotel because someone's renting their basement or renting a bedroom in their house. But as you can see here, the trend has really shifted more to entire home listings. And those are ones that are truly competitive with a hotel room, given the guest has free range over the entire property or unit. You'll also see an average score here across all the different sites that we track. This can be helpful when comparing different areas of your market to see where the higher rated listings occur. As you scroll down, you'll see on a map the listings in their approximate location. You can kind of zoom in here to get closer to a particular neighborhood. In this case, B in red is the dominant player, but we do also track HomeAway, Booking.com, and TripAdvisor. As you mouse over these listings, you get information such as the title, the amenities. You'll often sometimes also get a description of the listing if the host has provided one. But the idea here is not to specifically put to your competitive set, is to give you an understanding for the overall perspective, right? Because the supply is constantly changing. It's not a hotel room that's available every single night. So it's something that you want to look at more in the aggregate rather than zeroing in on a particular approximate location. On the right-hand side, you can also break down the listings in a table format via zip code or postal code and listing subtype. On the right-hand side, speaking of listing subtype, you can always filter. So you can go from, say, 10,300 listings total, just wanting to look at apartments, or maybe you want to look at homes, depending on the type of hotel inventory. If you're looking at a villa versus a single room, for example, you'd want to look at different subtypes of listings. You can see we've now decreased the number. You can zero in by postal codes or zip codes to get very specific. You can add multiple of these as well in and around your particular property. And then if you did want to look at the different sources, you could do that as well. But this use case is really one that you want to familiarize yourself with in the beginning and come back to on a relatively infrequent basis, maybe bi-monthly or monthly, just to see how the listings are growing. So you can report back to management, to ownership, et cetera, how this competitive threat is starting to encroach further and further upon your hotel. But really where you're going to spend most of your time is on this pricing and availability dashboard, given it provides you looking into your revenue management. So this pricing and availability dashboard is displaying entire home listings that are active on those platforms. And what you'll notice is right off the bat, you can understand what the breakdown is by subtype. So how many listing nights. So if a listing is available for 5 days in the next year, you're going to see 5 available listings here. And in this case, you'll see most in Chicago. The demo account we're looking at are apartments. Next, you can break down the overall availability by the number of bedrooms. Again, depending on the type of hotel room that you may be trying to revenue manage, you're going to want to look at different types of bedroom counts. On the right-hand side, you can get a very quick glance and understanding for areas of interest, where the prices are higher in red relative to the rest of the year versus where they are lower. So October 19th, prices are about 20% higher than the average for the next year, whereas on Wednesday, November 6th, they're about 15% lower. So just that one glance can kind of show you where there's higher interest relative to other periods. As you scroll down, it's really the meat and potatoes of what you've come to see, essentially, which is the availability and the average rate of the listings that are available from the alternative accommodation space. That is overlaid with Demand 360 and Rate 360 data that come from your underlying subscription. So as you'll see on the top left quadrant here, number of available listings for that particular day. There is no occupancy in the alternative accommodation space. There is no true set of supply that doesn't change, right? So it's important not to try to shoehorn a fake occupancy figure. So we're showing you the actual number of available listings, which you can compare to other periods to see where the demand exists. So for example, this particular day, Saturday, November 2nd, has 2,100 listings. You compare that to, the next Saturday, pretty even amount of demand, right? Obviously, a lot of times during the week, you're going to see more availability, less demand, and it depends on your market. But the idea here is anytime there's a trough, so a drop in the number of available listings, you can insinuate that to be an increase in consumer demand, and vice versa, where there are more listings available in these peaks. You can line up, drops in availability to increases in occupancy and see how the two different sets of accommodations are interacting with each other. So sometimes you may see when there's a massive increase in occupancy, a drop in availability. Other times you may not. And that's why it's really helpful to incorporate the insights into the alternative accommodation space. Whereas previously you would be revenue managing just based off of, these peaks and troughs. Now you can understand what's happening in the other types of listings that, like we said earlier, 75% of your guests are comparing you to when looking for lodging. On the right-hand side, you're simply seeing the average rate. And again, you can compare increases in rates here to those down here in your hotel and your comp set. So it just gives you a really good idea for where you might be able to push more rate. Say the alternative accommodations are much higher for that particular day than you and your competitive set. You might have some room here to push rate given the available listings that your guests may be comparing your hotel to are much higher price for that particular time period. So this is all about comparing what previously was just your insights into your hotel competition and incorporating, rounding out your competitive view with insights into the, competing with you. Finally, as we scroll down to the bottom, you can see a relative change. So week over week, so compared to 7 days ago, how many listings were added or are no longer available. In this case, you can see as you get close to a particular day, you're going to see larger decreases. But again, looking at the trends here, seeing where there's more drops in availability rather than these other days, you can insinuate that customers are focused on these particular days rather than say these particular days, or if you go out, you'll start seeing increases. So that can be helpful at a market level, but a lot of times you want to get a little closer to your hotel. What's truly competitive? Maybe not every one of these 3,000 listings is actually something that a guest will compare my hotel to. So in order to focus in, you have a number of filters on the left. So first is the subtype. So say we want to look at houses, for example. So we go from 3,000 listings, down to just about 100, right? This is an urban environment, so you're not going to have many of those. Let's say apartments, just a demo. You've dropped to about 2,500 listings maximum out here. And then again, depending on the type of hotel room that you're trying to price at this point, if it's a, double occupancy room, king, queen bed, etc., versus a suite or a villa, maybe you're going to want to choose different bedroom counts. So let's just say 1 bedrooms here. So now we've dropped to about 1,400 listings max. And then specifically in and around your hotel, we give you 3 options to choose listings based on their geographic proximity. So we'll take your latitude and longitude and we'll draw 3 separate circles, and any listings that fall within those circles will be included. So depending on your market and the distribution of the listings, these distances may change. You know, you may have 500 meters rather than 1,000 as your first, really just depends. But it's up to you to determine in your market, are you competing with someone that's right next to you on the beach and that's what most of your guests are looking for? Or maybe you're in town and it doesn't really matter if you're within a couple hundred meters, right? So you can choose different locations based on the location type of your hotel and how guests are considering your hotel and competitive options. So I've chosen just the neighborhood level. You can see now we're down to about 400, 450 maximum listings here. But maybe that's still not enough, right? That could be a couple hotels. Maybe you want to zero in a little further. So you can start to compare the rates essentially of your hotel, say, and your competitors to those over here. So you can find maybe these are too high. You want to look at maybe the lower end here, and you'll be looking at lower rates. Now we're down to about 200, 250 rooms. And then finally, the last filter here is all around host type. So this is a great piece of feedback we got during our beta period. Like I mentioned earlier, the alternative accommodation space is becoming more and more professionalized. About 43% of listings globally are run by someone or some organization that manages more than one listing. So those people are acting pretty much like mini revenue managers in your market. So they're trying to optimize for profit like you are, rather than just listing their house, on an infrequent basis, maybe when they go on vacation. So it can be helpful to focus in just on those hosts that manage multiple properties. So you can look truly at a constant supply, or at least closer to a constant supply of competitive rooms that are out there being managed by people that are, again, doing it for profit, just like you. So now you can see we've gone down to about 200 listings maximum from the original 3,000 we were looking at before. So this is how you can really compare those hundreds of listings that are truly competitive with your hotel from both a availability and a rate perspective. So that basically sums it up. The rest of these slides here, which I will be sharing later, essentially will just walk through what we just discussed, specifically our underlying platform, Hotelligence, Demand 360 here, and then the interface itself and how you would use it in conjunction with your existing TravelClick products. So I wanted to take the time to say thank you again for joining us. I'd open up the floor to any questions. I'm more than happy to answer anyone that has on mind.
Thank you, Justin. I appreciate that presentation. Very good. Thank you. Just a quick note, although Justin presented, if you have any interest or questions, please contact Yesenia. Her email is listed right there. She's also joined this presentation, so you could also send her a private message via the chat if you'd like to reach out to her at this moment in time. So right now we're going to open up the Q&A portion of the webinar. So any questions you have for Justin, please send them to me via the Zoom group chat box, and I will answer them in the order they were received. So I just want to begin with asking Justin, if a property was interested in having access to this data, what would it take from them?
Sure, that's a great question. So in order to subscribe to the alternative accommodation dashboards we just walked through, you need to subscribe to either Demand and or Rate 360. So again, not quite sure how much familiarity everyone on the call has with those two products, but essentially Demand 360 is a forward-looking reservation consortium. So it's really dependent on our coverage in your particular market, and Yesenia can definitely answer questions around that. But it's a tool that gives you forward-looking intelligence based on your occupancy, ADR, and RevPAR compared to your peers, on the books reservations, committed reservations, et cetera. Whereas Rate 360 is a forward-looking rate shopping tool that helps you understand publicly available rates for yourself and your peers across all the different channels. So you have to subscribe to either one of those, and then this is available as an add-on subscription to one or both of those products. And the pricing is pretty straightforward. It's just dependent on the class of your hotel and the number of rooms, and it ranges from $750 to $1,500 a year.
Okay, perfect. And then next question, looking to the future, how much of the share will contribute alternative accommodation on the online bookings?
That's a great question. I think right now, if you look at it, some of the stats we brought up earlier showed that about 25% of all spending, so not just online bookings, but also spending in the lodging space, is going to come from alternative accommodations. Personally, I believe that's going to continue. We've seen the growth, um, really skyrocket in the last couple of years. And it definitely will start to saturate at some point, but clearly the hoteliers themselves, the big global brands, are really focused on this. They're launching their own products in this space. So it's not something that's going to disappear. It's only going to continue to grow. I don't have a magic number as to what percentage and what share that's going to end up becoming, but definitely will continue to grow, in the years forward, especially as we see some, increasing professionalization in this space, like I referenced earlier. There's a lot more attention. There's a lot more capital being put into this space. You're seeing a lot of smaller niche type platforms open up that are delivering an even more structured and repeatable experience that is a lot more competitive, with a hotel compared to some of the misconceptions, the misnomers of this alternative accommodation space previously. There's a lot more uniformity and a lot more repeatability coming to the space. So definitely continue to see this grow.
Perfect, thank you. So at this time, if anyone else has any further questions, please send them via the chat box. In the meantime, just a friendly reminder that CHTA webinars are a member benefit. So if you have not updated your profile or paid your 2019-2020 dues, please do so after the webinar. This presentation is being recorded and will be available via the CHTA secured portal. So please look out for that. Our CHTA members, you'll be able to go back and review the entire recording as well as the PDF version of the presentation as well. So without further ado, Justin, TravelClick, thank you so much. Appreciate your time, appreciate the presentation. Again, if anyone's interested in learning more, please contact Yesenia. Justin, would you like to say any final words?
No, I just want to thank everyone once again. And like just mentioned, please do reach out if you have any questions. We'd be more than happy to take you through a demo again and specifically show you exactly where and how many listings are competing locally with you at your destination. Thanks again.
Justin, before we sign off, we have one question. Is it less advantageous for an alternative accommodation to be located in a town or residential area?
That's a good question. It really depends on the type of market. If you're in a large urban environment, I think a lot of times, people want to kind of be closer to, the locals, and they want to live like a local when they're on vacation. And that's the big draws of alternative accommodations is you're not going to a hotel brand and a relatively similar experience. You're actually kind of getting into the fabric of the city or that destination. So I think in certain areas and for certain travelers, it's advantageous to be located in more of a localized area. But again, depending on the market, if you're a beach destination, that's going to be the attraction that's going to draw everyone. So it's more advantageous to be near that, right? If you're a ski destination, people prefer to be closer to the center of town in the chairlift rather than living in a residential area and having to commute in. So it's really just dependent on your market. And really the best way to think about it is, why is your guest coming to your hotel? For your leisure guests in particular, right? Is it something they want to be focused on from a very tight proximity? They need to be near this attraction and it's a big selling point. And if not, then yeah, maybe some of these alternative accommodations can be appealing to your guests because maybe they're out of the the commercial area and more residential area. But really just depends on your destination and the draws that bring in your guests.
Great answer, Justin.
Thank you.
Okay, so at this time, thank you everyone. Appreciate your time and patience with the short delay at the beginning, but thank you so much. And again, thank you TravelClick and Justin.
Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Have a great day, everyone.